Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Francisco Ruiz. I'm with the National Alliance of State and Territorial AIDS Directors, as well as with NLAN, the National Latino AIDS Action Network. Today, we're going to get started in a webinar, part of our AIDS2012 Brown Bag webinar series. Before we get started, I want to just go over some webinar etiquette. We will have everyone right now muted, but at the end, we'll have a Q&A section, so you could unmute yourself, and that's pressing *7. Where you could ask verbal questions, but also we have the written chat feature. So on your screen, you see on the bottom left a chat function. Feel free to type in questions or comments, and we'll make sure we address them throughout the webinar, or we'll address them at the end of the presentation. And then following the webinar, you'll be forwarded to an evaluation, a SurveyMonkey. If you could please fill that out just to make sure that we're evaluating our webinars and making sure we're making them better for you in the coming months. Today's webinar is entitled Developing a Great PowerPoint. Again, this is part of a webinar series that we've been doing since November to really strengthen and engage Latinos and other community members around the International AIDS Conference that is taking place almost 4 months away in July in Washington, D.C. And so today is a presentation looking at the PowerPoint presentation and how you can strengthen that. And obviously, this skill set is transferable to any presentation or any conference that you may be attending or presenting at. And so for today, the overview, very basic, 5 basic PowerPoint tips. We'll go over some of those and what that means. In addition, then we'll go into 4 golden rules, essentially for tailored for the International AIDS Conference and for any science-based conference. And then we'll have a Q&A and then showcase some very exciting news, some upcoming activities that are being spearheaded by NLAN as well as our partner organizations with the support of the Office of AIDS Research at the National Institutes of Health. And so as we move forward now with our 5 basic PowerPoint tips. And so I just wanted, before I get started, I just want to mention that PowerPoint and presenting PowerPoints, it's a mixture, as a cliche as it is, of art and science. And so what I put together for the group today is some research that I did online and speaking to some other colleagues here who are, develop PowerPoints. And so this is something that we've compiled. It's not a complete and exhaustive list of recommendations, but this is what the experts have been saying. So I just kind of compiled a few tips for everybody. But just before we get started, as everyone knows, PowerPoint is a common audiovisual aid for oral presentations, but it can detract from your presentation if not used properly. So remember that PowerPoint is an instrument to get your message across to your audience, and you need to focus on the message to ensure that PowerPoint is tailored for that and does not distract. Your audience, remember, came to see you and to hear you, and so the PowerPoint should be simply as an additional supplemental tool for you to showcase your findings, your projects, your work, and shouldn't necessarily be the crutch and the only thing that you really put your effort in. And remember, it's about you, not the slides. And so it's just simply the 5 PowerPoint tips that I'm going to go into detail will be keeping it simple, make it readable, select the right background, do not use Excel, and be selective when using media. And so I'll go into all 5 of those in greater detail moving forward. So keeping it simple, with PowerPoint presentation, it's best to keep them simple and avoid clutter. Don't try to fit in a whole novel on each slide. Bullets and short phrases are more effective than sentences. If you can shorten your point, then do so. A good guide is to use no more than 5 to 7 bullets per slide and no more than 5 to 7 words per bullet. Again, this is, sometimes you'll need to put a little bit more wording, but try to limit yourself in terms of the text on the PowerPoint slide. One concept per slide at a time is typically a good idea, so there's not a lot of ideas going out there on the one slide, and folks get confused and lose the message you're trying to deliver. Also, ask yourself whether you can scan the information on the slide in 15 seconds, because this is usually what your audience will do. So making sure that it's clean and straight to the point. Try to change slides every 30 to 60 seconds to give a good pace to your talk and keep your audience interested. Also, don't be tempted to go right on the edge of the slide. I know a lot of times we want to put a lot of things on our slide. And so apart from looking overcrowded, you will not get everything you see on the slide. And so a good rule of thumb is maybe keep a nice pointer away from the edge of the slide. So if you go around your slides, put a mouse, and if your mouse fits on each of those sides of the PowerPoint, then you should be pretty good. The next is, of the 5, the second is make it readable. Some basic things to consider is to make it readable is keeping the wording clear and simple. Try to reduce your main ideas down to key words, and that you will expand on the speech. So as you're presenting, you elaborate a little bit more. So you don't need to put all your thoughts on the PowerPoint. The point is to make sure that you just have the key points and then you elaborate on that. Your title font should be at least 36 to 40 point size. Again, it's an art and science. Sometimes you need to do a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, but that's a good range to consider as you're developing your PowerPoint so that folks the title stands out from the rest of the text. The text body font should be a minimum of a 20 point size. If you go any smaller, it's going to be harder, especially if you're in a long room or a big room. If folks won't be able to read the PowerPoint, the text if it's smaller usually than 24. Avoid using too many font styles in one slide. It is common to have one style for titles and one style for text body, with some contrast between them. You also have to avoid using ultra-stylish font. I know a lot of times we want to personalize it, and that's very important, but we want to make sure folks are able to read, and sometimes curvy font is hard to read from the distance. So usually a good rule of thumb is using Arial, Times Roman, or Verdana. Again, continuing with making it readable, capital letters can be hard to read, so make sure you use upper and lowercase lettering. All capital letters are often seen as shouting, so you don't want to come off as shouting to your audience. Sometimes there will be occasions where you will have to just send a statement to have it capitalized, all the words, but try to refrain from using all caps. Use bold or italic to emphasize rather than underline, because underline oftentimes makes it look cluttered. Also, avoid using more than 3 colors, one for the background, one for the titles, and one for the body of the text. Keeping the color design consistent between slides and select a text color that contrasts well with the background. Now let's go into the background, selecting the right background. Choose a background template that is simple and clear, because your presentation should focus on the message, your ideas, rather than the medium, which is the PowerPoint. Choose colors with a good contrast between the background and the font. So as again, using dark and light shades so the text stand out. Dark and light is usually the most readable design, but you could also do the reverse: a dark backdrop or background with a white or light colored font. Also, it's very important always to account for color blindness in your audience. So use lots of contrast and avoid combinations that oftentimes, such as reds, greens, browns, oranges, and yellows. And also, maintain consistency in your background. Use simple design and light textures to enhance readability. Oftentimes, we want to, again, personalize our PowerPoint, but we want to make sure that we're also professional. So try to minimize using the flying words or all of the different animations you could do with moving graphs and sound effects. That could be sometimes distracting. Avoid the color of red for font or background, as it can be emotionally overwhelming and difficult to view and read. Backgrounds often look good if they are graduated, for example, from blue to darker blue, but avoid using two different colors for the background. And so focus on branding your business potentially. So you may want to use a logo on every page, so it pulls the thread throughout the presentation and keep your presentation consistent with the color palette. So now do not use Excel. So let me explain a little bit more about that. And a lot of times for presentations, we want to use graphs and bars, but sometimes actually PowerPoint has a graphing feature. And so don't use Excel, then use what the PowerPoint program has. Excel is oftentimes for those who are crunching numbers by accountants, but not for people trying to make a cutting-edge presentation. And that's what PowerPoint is for. The graphing program built into PowerPoint is very similar to the one in Excel, but simply works better. There may be occasions where you want to use your Excel spreadsheet, but try to minimize that. It's just the one that PowerPoint has. It fits into the slide better. It's more appealing to the eye, and it behaves better if you want to minimize it or make it smaller or larger. So it's oftentimes easier and better to use the built-in graph feature that PowerPoint has. And then this is the next one is be selective with using media. This is definitely a personal style, but the right graph can add impact and can emphasize a point that you're trying to make. But also, if it's the wrong graphic, it can be distracting and really reduce the effectiveness. And so, if you're adding pictures to your presentation, also consider making sure that it goes within the theme and that they relate to the topic. Avoid using copyright-protected pictures. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And also to avoid a large PowerPoint file. Oftentimes, I'm sure people have experienced, putting pictures on, and the PowerPoint file is very large. To limit that, reduce the image resolution on any picture that you put on your PowerPoint. By doing that, you should still have a clear picture for your PowerPoint, but it won't make your PowerPoint size too large where you can't email it. So making sure if you do use images or any media, make sure you reduce the image resolution so that you could do forwarded email if folks are asking for the PowerPoint. Also, as you know, there's a lot of clip art and animation, fancy slide transition. When it comes down to it, they can be distracting. So take that into consideration depending on the audience. And now I'm going to go into just some examples for folks. I did some search online and some good examples and not so good examples. So this one here, I just wanted folks to take a look at it and try to see if folks think this is a good or a bad example. So here are some comments on this one. The title is too broad and topic is vague. So, while the topic is global warming, it doesn't really tell you what about global warming, what's on the slide. There's an excessive information for one slide. It's really hard, so imagine that being in the back of the room and seeing this PowerPoint presentation. You won't be able to read all the text, and then therefore the audience won't be receiving the information you're trying to give them. Then also the template, while it is nice to have Crayolas, it doesn't necessarily speak to the global warming topic. Also, three different fonts. Main body font is too small, and then the bottom font, the curly font. I'm not sure actually what the name of the font is, but it's kind of hard to read. And so, try to stay away, like I mentioned before, some of the curlier fonts. All right, so now this one. So for this one, as you may have guessed, it is also a bad example. And the reasons for that is that there really isn't a connection between Australia and global warming. It kind of just throws it out there, but it's unclear. And so the title should really be and make you easily understand what you're trying to talk about. There's also several different fonts. There's 4, I believe, different font styles. Again, let's try to limit that a little bit so there's some consistency and cleanness to your slide. Again, excessive information. Probably could have trimmed some of the language on the slide. The percentages font is light blue on a dark blue background. Again, we talked about having a contrast, and so that is a challenge if you're trying to see it from the back of the room. So if you're going to use the background for this slide, I would urge using a different color, not another color of blue, because that may fade into the blue on blue. Isn't always appealing in the back of the room, even in the front of the room sometimes. The bullets missing. There aren't really bullets in front of the bottom, the percentage pieces, and the arrows are distracting, and they don't really add anything to the PowerPoint. While the template theme does suit the topic, though, it's just too busy for all the information you're trying to present. So now this one. So for this one, there's a good color contrast between the blue backdrop and the white. The title is larger than the text, and the title reflects the overarching theme of the slide. So they're tips for choosing good books. Also, it's clean and simple. The image matches the theme. So it's a clip art or an image, but it reflects what the topic of the slide is. And the bullets are short and to the point. Another one here, another example. And the reason why this is a good one, so as you said, I did too bad and too good, I didn't mix them up, is that the title speaks for itself. So if you read the title and then you look at the graph, you don't necessarily need the presenter to be in the room. You're able to capture what he or she is trying, the message that he or she is trying to deliver. So sometimes, as you know, the audio is hard in a room. So you want to make sure that while your idea is to enhance your presentation, you want to make sure that when folks read your presentation, they're able to understand what exactly you're trying to say. And so the title does that. And the graph is very easy to read. Again, they used the graph system that's in PowerPoint to populate this graph. There's a good contrast of colors. There's not too many colors. I think I see 3 colors, but there's a good contrast, so you could stand out from the back of the room the difference in the colors with the bars as well as the text. And also, you may notice there's a logo on the bottom. Again, it helps with the branding. It doesn't distract from the PowerPoint presentation, but this logo, it's always good to put a logo, and a lot of organizations have already their template. So it's always a good idea so that you brand your presentation and, again, have that thread throughout the presentation. So the next set of slides, and then we're going to open up for Q&A if folks have questions. The next set of slides is really looking at PowerPoint presentations for the International AIDS Conference and other really science-based conferences. And so this is from a source that some research that I did online, a great resource which is noted in the bottom, From Concept to Critical Discussion, a toolkit for preparing the best conference abstract, presentation, and poster. So if you Google that title, you'll be able to find the document that lays out some descriptions of how you can make a strong PowerPoint presentation. But the 4 themes that came out from that document, the golden rules that they suggest are reverse, reallocate, remove, and rewrite. So rule number 1, reverse. So a normal presentation usually starts with a description and then ends with a conclusion. Instead, begin with your conclusion, lessons learned, and next steps. Move to the context setting, which is a description, and then go back to lessons learned and next steps. The second time you do this section, you will do it in a greater detail. This helps people know where your presentation is going, and by doing so, you're reminding everyone, including yourself, that the lessons learned and next steps are the most important sections. Beginning and ending with the conclusion, lessons learned, and next steps is repetitive, but repetition is effective. There's a saying about presentation that goes, tell them what you're going to say, then say it, and tell them what you just said. Rule number 2, reallocate. So reallocate the number of slides you devote to each section by changing the proportions of description to analysis. So instead of 90% of slides on the research design project description and 10% on slides on lessons learned, results, outcomes, and next steps, let's try a different proportion. For instance, 35% on the research design and project description and 65% on the lessons learned, results, outcomes, and next steps. So a good rule of thumb is to begin with 2 slides summarizing conclusion and lessons learned, then 2 slides on research design and project description, and then 11 slides on lessons learned and next steps. Again, those are just recommendations, and you'll have to adapt appropriately depending on your time limitations. Rule number 3, remove. So again, as I mentioned before, after you're writing your first draft, go through your presentation and remove any details that people will not likely remember. Think of what kind of data and information you can give in a handout or on a web page instead of your presentation. And also, are you bragging about your program? Keep it to a minimum. Be humble and focus on your challenges and lessons learned. Don't load up your slides with too many pictures. Presentations based on abstracts are generally only 10 to 15 minutes, so remember that. Rule number 4, rewrite. So we've said this before. It's very important, and it may be sound repetitive, but make sure you edit, rewrite. Find editors who will be very critical. Your colleague, your boss, friends, making sure that you do spell check, and then you have them do the spell check. And most importantly, make sure that you save some time to do this editing piece. It's very important. You don't want any typos or anything like that to distract folks and to reduce the effectiveness of your presentation. So it's always important to rewrite, edit, and rewrite. And then just final things to consider. Again, can't emphasize enough, double check your grammar and spelling. Nothing is more of a turnoff than using the wrong wording, inappropriate wording. Practice your presentation. I think that's also very, very important. Presentations often don't work because speakers don't take them as seriously as traditional presentations. Practice it as you would as regular speech. Obviously, respect the time. You don't want to go over time. A lot of times for sort of conferences like the International AIDS Conference, you'd be on a panel. So you want to make sure how much time you have, and also, which is not on the PowerPoint, but make sure you connect with the other the presenters, so you can figure out the flow and make sure that you guys are gaining a momentum with your presentations and you're feeding off each other. But it's very important making sure that you respect the time. Also, don't read your slides. If you may notice, I haven't been reading verbatim the PowerPoint presentations for this webinar. Your audience is able to read, and this is a no-brainer, but somehow PowerPoint makes people think they can get away with it. If you don't know your speech without cues, that doesn't just make you more distracting. It shows that you don't really understand your message. So making sure that you don't read your slides, and you, again, elaborate on the PowerPoint bulleted items to making sure you re-emphasize and strengthen the point that you may have on your slide. Come early and come really early. Don't fumble with PowerPoint or hooking up a projector or anything like that. If you guys are attending conferences, you won't be worrying about that, but making sure that your PowerPoint presentation is uploaded and that it is ready to go. Oftentimes, that by not doing that, your anxiety level raises. Also, a good idea is check out the room, see how big the room is, how long the room is, and also helps you prepare in terms of how you're going to have to project your voice or not. Always important to bring backups. You never know, there may be a malfunction with the projector or computer, or they may just never receive your PowerPoint. So if you can, try to bring a handful of several handouts that you could share of your PowerPoint presentation so folks could follow if you do have a malfunction or IT problem. Also, at the end of your PowerPoint presentation, make sure you include your contact information. Again, that's a no-brainer, but sometimes folks forget to do that. So make sure you include your either your website, an email, your name, so folks can know if they have a question, they could follow up with you. Also, make sure you use language that is accessible, especially at a conference like the International AIDS Conference. You can't assume that everyone is fluent in English. So you want to make sure that your language is very basic. While informative, you want to make sure that it's accessible to anyone. Try to avoid using jargon and acronyms. If you do use an acronym, make sure you spell it similar to what you would do in a written document. Make sure you spell out the acronym first. A good rule of thumb is maybe using it twice, and then if it follows again in other slides, you could use the acronym. So now we'll go into some Q&A. If folks have any questions, *7 to unmute, or you feel free to chat and put your question through the chat feature. One question that did come through a couple times through the chat feature, if this presentation will be recorded, it will be emailed. Yes, upon completing your evaluation form, we will be sending you the PowerPoint presentation, as well as we'll be having the recorded version available online. Any questions for the chat or on the phone? All right, so let me move forward. If folks have questions, feel free to type it in or chime in using *7 to unmute yourself. I just want to get now that I have everyone's attention still, some upcoming activities. As you know, this is part of a webinar series. The next webinar would be how to create a poster presentation. So many of us have gone to conferences and had to do presentations, oral presentations, and that's what we're doing today's webinar. But there's also times when you do poster presentations. So we'll be talking about some tips and guides to do a strong poster presentation, and that will be for our next webinar. And I wanted to also share some exciting news about several activities that are happening and leading up to the conference and at the International AIDS Conference. And so we'll be getting ready to launch a new program called Ambassadors Program. Essentially is where we identify approximately 20 Latinos around the country to come to the conference. And so there will be an application process, and there's basically is to really bring, as the name suggests, bring the community, the ambassadors of their community, and bring their community to the conference. But then, more importantly, also bring everything that folks learned and saw and heard at the conference, bringing that back home. And so the Embajadores program is a new program. This is the preview of it. We'll be having a webinar more in detail about this program. And so if you have any questions, please email AIDS2012 at s-3.com. The email is on the PowerPoint presentation. And so this application process opens Thursday, March 22nd, and will close Tuesday, April 10th. And so if you know anyone who would be interested, a little bit more of the benefits for folks to know, participants will receive a round-trip coach ticket from their homes, as well as from their homes to Washington, D.C. They will also get 8 nights lodging in D.C. by a hotel selected by the conference organizers. They'll get paid full registration for AIDS2012. So as we know, that alone is pretty expensive, and so this is a great program and a great benefit for folks who are interested in attending the conference. Also, they'll receive a standard meal allowance in accordance to the federal government rate, the per diem rate, as well as they'll receive tailored on-site orientation training, daily debriefings, mentorship opportunities, as well as other things such as T-shirts. And the roles and expectations of folks who will be participating in this program will be to assist with the dissemination and promotion of conference activities, to participate on webinars and conference calls prior to the actual conference. They'll be expected to attend some meetings at the conference and do some report backs of those meetings. There will be several activities in the Global Village, as well as a Latino pre-conference, which I'm going to give you a little bit more information on this webinar about. Also, they will be expected to develop written or video blogs throughout the conference, and using their social media And to share that, again, this goes back to the theme of the program of being embajadores and being ambassadors. So making sure that folks at a timely fashion are getting information of what's happening at the conference. And there'll be a training on how to use media and how to develop blogs prior to the actual conference. So folks will have those tools already. And they'll be able to help organize, and they'll be expected to organize community events after the conference in their respective organizations and back at home. The criteria, as you see before you, preferred to have bilingual capability, either English and Spanish, experience in the field of HIV, Latino Hispanic background, current resident of the U.S., and a minimum age of 18. Are there any questions for the Embajadores program? Any questions regarding the Embajadores program? Star 7 to unmute yourself. All right, so the next program that is also similarly very exciting is a separate, as many know, that International AIDS Conference has a volunteer program, and that program is phenomenal, and you're being part of the International AIDS Conference volunteer program allows you to take part in some of the days of the conference. NLAN and partner organizations are doing their separate community volunteer program, which, unlike the IAS volunteer program, we will support, similar to the previous program, round-trip tickets, food registration, lodging, and meal allowance. So this program is simply going to help support some of the various activities that are going to be taking place during the conference. So this is another program similar to the Embajadores program to really mobilize, inform, and engage Latinos around the country to be actively involved in the conference. And so this is another opportunity for folks who are interested in attending the conference. There will be great benefits, as you noted before you on the slide. Both these programs will be available March 22nd. There'll be a webinar that day giving the official release, the launch of this program, where we'll give detailed information in terms of where to register, where to apply, and what are some of the other components of both programs. Another program that we're really excited about is, as you know, we're organizing, hopefully many of you know, a Latino pre-conference, also known as an affiliated event. And so this will take place on Saturday, July 21st from 8 to 4 o'clock. It will be at the Renaissance Hotel, which is 1 or 2 blocks away from the convention center. As noted before, Creando la Red del Futuro, Latino Hispanic HIV Community Research Forum. It will be a full-day meeting looking at Latino U.S. epidemic. And so if folks who are interested in traveling to D.C., make sure you keep this date into account when you're booking your travel. If you can, try to get there Friday so you can be able to attend this Saturday full-day pre-conference. We'll be sending it similar to the other programs. We will have more information for folks on the March 22nd webinar. I simply just wanted to give folks kind of the save the date for that. So there'll be more information also, an application, RSVP form for folks to apply to attend because there is limited space, and so we'll be on a first-come, first-served basis. And then the last activity that is exciting, we're going to be also doing a Latino networking reception. And so this is a network reception of NLAN, Nuestra Noche de Acción. It's going to be on Tuesday, July 24th, from 7 to 9 at Cuba Libre, which is a restaurant in D.C. that is about 3 to 4 blocks away from the convention center. And so we're going to have live music. We're going to have music. We're going to have a display of Latinos and HIV leaders. So we'll have images of Latino leaders, past and present, their bios. We'll have a timeline of Latinos in USA, Latinos and HIV, the epidemic. So we'll have some passive educational materials throughout the Cuba Libre, throughout the restaurant. But then more importantly, it will be an opportunity for us to meet with our colleagues that are Latino or that are serving or invested in Latino communities to really come together and share some time to kind of get a step away from the convention center and just kind of transform for those couple hours to just really kind of have a good time and get to know people that are doing similar fights across the country and across the world. Again, this is also a limited space, and so it will be first come, first serve. The RSVP process for this will probably begin in May at some point, and we'll send more information. But I just want to give folks the heads up, save the date. We confirmed the date, time, and location, so I wanted to make sure folks had it firsthand on this webinar. And so again, to learn more about all the different activities, the Embajadores program, the Community Volunteer Program, the Latino Pre-Conference affiliated event, as well as some other activities that we're getting planned for during the Global Village that we've been doing some work with the Latin American and the Caribbean countries. We'll be doing hopefully some activities and get everyone involved in that in the Global Village. To get more information about all those different activities, please join us on March 22nd. The link is on the slide. I know that it's kind of a long link, but if you complete the evaluation form, you will be getting this PowerPoint presentation, and so you'll be able to just click on it and register for this webinar. Again, March 22nd. Do I have any questions right now before we end the webinar regarding any of the different activities that I mentioned? *7 to unmute yourself. So I have a question on the chat feature asking how many volunteers are you recruiting. So right now that's the number that we're still kind of playing with, but we're looking anywhere from 20 to 30 volunteers for the program. And so we'll confirm those numbers again on this webinar. We have to do the crunching of numbers. But again, all these efforts, including the webinar series that you are taking part of, is through the support of the Office of AIDS Research at the National Institutes of Health. They really want to mobilize, engage, and strengthen the participation of Latinos at this conference. So it's a great opportunity. Very grateful that our federal government is supporting Latinos to join this conference. And so we'll be having more information for folks on the website. And once we have the final applications and forms and available online, we'll send an email that gives everyone the links to apply for these various programs. But if you can, make sure to join us on the launch of all this, the launch March 22nd on this webinar that you guys have in front of you. If there's no other questions, thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in DC in July.
Thank you. Please stand by.